Hi, this is Ben Green from The Athletic FC. The podcast you're about to listen to is brought to you by Hotels.com. As a Hotels.com member, you save up to 20% on hundreds of thousands of hotels and earn rewards on every single stay, which means the trips you're taking now help pay for the ones you're already dreaming about. And unlike some other places, there are no blackout dates, so when you want to travel, your rewards are ready to go. So the next time you're planning a work trip or a getaway, make sure to book it at Hotels.com and start earning rewards. Hotels.com. It's all in the name.
This is the Blue Moon Podcast. Coming up, we've got all the news and views from Manchester City's week. It's your club, and this is your show.
It's been a decade of incredible football, trophies galore and broken record after broken record. But now, after more games in charge of Manchester City than any other manager, the Pep Guardiola era is coming to an end. On today's special Blue Moon podcast, we're going to get all emotional and nostalgic as we look back over the 10-year reign of a head coach that we only expected to stay for 3 seasons. In that time, he's become the greatest in the club's history, and most importantly, he's also become a massive Bert as well. I'm David Mooney. For the first part of today's show, I've got City fans Gaz.
Hiya.
Casey.
You alright?
And Chris Higginbottom.
Hey, hope you're alright.
There we go. First off, Gaz, I'll start with you. What's been your reaction to the news that that Guardiola's stepping down?
I don't know. Probably that. Just sort of realised, probably maybe got to the point how much we sort of took for granted that he'd be there, really, and what that gives you, because then you sort of think about, what's it going to be like under somebody new, and you're probably just not going to be the force that you were. Really, you've got just another manager as opposed to what you had. So yeah, probably just that overwhelmingly just thought, it became how it sort of began to feel very normal that you had him in charge, and took for granted what that sort of brought with it.
Yeah, Higgy, it's been years since City have been in the old hire and fire sort of scenario. Even before Pep, they weren't exactly the most trigger happy of clubs. So, is it weird going through a change of manager?
Well, it is after this amount of time, and it is with it being someone so successful as Pep. It feels a little bit like, you're in a really comfortable surrounding and someone opens a door and kicks you into a vast wilderness and you don't really know what to expect. I just googled actually the 4 stages of grief. Shock and numbness. Wasn't really feeling shocked or numb. Yearning and searching. That's not my job, that someone else can find. 3, disorganisation and despair. I mean, I'm way ahead on that one. That's you're doing well on that one. That's my natural state. And then there's reorganisation and recovery.
Yeah. KC, given how long the stories have been going on for this season, was there a point where you thought, this time it might be true?
To be honest with you, I've just been operating all season under the impression that this was going to be his last season. I didn't think at any point he was going to stay until last week, when those rumours were going around that he's definitely staying, and I don't know where those came from, but a good friend of the show, Kieran Murray, was absolutely adamant he was staying, and now I want to kick his head in.
Yeah, that guy's name is Mud. Built us up and slashed us down.
Because if anyone knew, it would be him.
Exactly.
Finger
Gaz, on
the Pep pulse.
Yeah, Gaz, when you think of the last 10 years as well, in terms of the football that you've seen, we all kind of had high expectations, but it must have exceeded that as well.
Yeah, I mean, it just became completely normal, didn't it? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's such a long time ago. I'm trying to think about what I was expecting coming in. But I suppose it has sort of redefined what a good season is now. We're I certainly think it was, but I guess we're all sort of coming off the back of winning 2 trophies this year and all sort of wondering between ourselves whether that sort of counts as success or not. So sort of to get us to that position, we're obviously a very different type of club from the one he picked up.
Well, I think when he came in, we had, I was like, right, well, it's going to take him a while to sort of bed in. And he's got his defence was incredibly old, wasn't it? Like he had, old man Zabaleta running around still as his right back, and we didn't replace any defenders that summer. But then he started by winning his first 10 games, didn't he? And I just thought, oh, actually, maybe this is going to be easy. But then by like January time, we were making Tom Davis at Everton look like prime Messi.
Shipped
So
4 goals at Goodison.
yeah. So it was just it was a bit all over the place that first season. Then yeah, from the second season, once he brought in who he wanted when he'd had a year to assess the squad, and he'd realised that Claudio Bravo was a hologram, we were absolutely fine, weren't we?
Yeah, Higgy. I mean, you think back to that first 10 games, and I remember a lot of people saying, "Well, look at how he's transformed the team, and how just the development that they've been on in such a short space of time." But then when you think back at everything that he achieved, kind of in the years that followed, I don't even think we could comprehend how good it was going to get at that stage. Do you know what I mean?
Well, how could we? I mean, he's not just transformed City. He's transformed the whole football landscape in well, certainly this country. Like, even we've said it before on this podcast. Like, even Sunday League, people are passing out from the back. Like, even on a cabbage patch of a pitch, people are trying to emulate Pep's style through every league in the country, and it's undeniable the effect he's had. He's absolutely rewired football. And you get naysayers who are saying it isn't very exciting. I'm sorry, they just don't really understand. You need to control a football game, and the football he's played, the football City have played under him, has been absolutely breathtaking at times. I've loved nearly every minute of it.
Yeah, Gaz, has he changed how you see football? How you think about it?
That's a really good question. I think I always liked that style of football. Like,
well, you are Spanish, to be fair, aren't you?
Effectively knocking it. Yeah, well, yes. But I guess it probably does make you sort of think. Yeah, I guess like in general though, like I don't know if this is just like probably as a result of sort of proliferation of football media and stuff like. We're all talking more about tactics than we ever have done, haven't we? And that is probably a sort of result of having managers like Pep, sort of raising that sort of element of the game. Really, I love watching it. I think people who say that it's not good to watch are just absolutely nuts. Like, I don't understand like what people sort of like.
I think it's
stop messing about with it.
I think it's come along at the wrong time with the confluence of people just being addicted to the phones as well.
Yeah.
That if you're watching a game but you're also half watching your phone and doing other stuff as well, then I can sort of see why it's boring. Why people, not that why it is boring, why people would say it's boring, because if you're not watching everything that's going on and all the movement, then you're not going to really understand it if you're constantly every 2 seconds looking at your phone.
But I think it comes from like anyone who's ever played football, right, knows that like when you feel the best feeling is that when you've sort of like, where you put great moves together with your mates and you've knocked it 5 or 6 times or whatever. Is from having played it that is actually technically harder to do than most of the things, right? And when you've sort of you've elevated it to that point. So when you're sort of elevating obviously a professional level to knocking it 20 or 30 times between you against another team of professionals, you can't help but just sort of appreciate just sort of this idea that players aren't technically as good these days is just absolutely for the birds. You have to be technically a brilliant footballer to play this type of football, because it's really difficult. I love watching it, and I think
there's
people
no luck involved, is there?
No, and I think people are slightly in denial about what it's replaced. It's like, there's a bit of a build up at the back. That's just replaced a ball, which probably would have just been hit into touch. You know what I mean? Like, what do you miss? I think it's great, and to be honest as well, like I don't think if you sort of watch Pep City, particularly like in the second half of it, going up against sort of Klopp's teams, that it's not like watching a sort of when you watch like a bad Spain team at a World Cup when nothing really seems to happen. It's not like that. We do get the ball from front to back quite quickly, actually. I think compared to sort of like a lot of those other teams as well.
I think that is part of the issue, though. Like because like as Higgy said, he's influenced the football landscape so much. When people are just watching football generally now, like they'll be watching Brighton, who are a good team to watch, but Lewis Dunk will have the ball more than anyone else, despite the amount of their good players. But that's because they can't transfer the ball through the phases or whatever as quickly as we can.
And it's because we're so effective at creating that space that we can use that system to transfer the ball so quickly, because we can pull those players across into the spaces we need to be in, cross the lanes, stop the lanes we need to stop, bring those players in, creating the space, and then we send it. It's
well, that's one of the most underrated goals under Pep for me was I think Gundogan finished it off against United.
It's like 31 passes or something.
31, 32 passes, something like that, where everyone touched the ball. And that just feel like, like it just felt at the ground like everyone's just going, ole, 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 or whatever. And then like when it finally finished and it was in, it was just like, there was not one single poor pass in that 31 as well. It wasn't just like, centre-back to centre-back. We went up and down the pitch a few times before we decided to pull the trigger.
The finish was a bit scuffy, ironically. But...
Yeah.
That's like the Sane one against Arsenal as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Yes.
Well, I was going to say favourite goals and favourite games, and like you mentioned the Sane one, and it's like two things really annoy me about that, and that's the finish was a bit scuffed by Sane, but also whoever was directing the game for Sky cut away from the wide shot and goes to a couple of close-ups in the build-up, so we don't get to see it all. It's just really, really frustrating. Higgy, have you got any favourite games, favourite goals? There's so many to pick from.
Well, as a kind of in theme of what we're kind of talking about, and an antidote to this theory that we don't move the ball about quickly, I think just one of the favourite, not just City goals, but one of the best goals I've ever seen was the Bernardo Silva against Villa, where we did incredibly well. Was it Mahrez in the box shielding the ball? He squirts it out to, I think
Fernandinho.
Who got it to Gabby Jesus, who put in just a perfect cross. And this is like, scuffle in the box, don't panic, pass. Ball is then, within a second on the right wing, the most perfect cross, and striding onto it, the biggest tiny man on the planet with one of the best volleys you'll ever see, just to smash it home. Now that's the way to finish a fucking move.
I was going to say that same goal, and what I like about that goal is that I think that's the best goal City have ever scored, by the way. I don't even think it won our goal. I don't even think it won our goal of the season, funnily enough, but it definitely is. But what I like about it is the finish from Bernardo, right? He volleys that because he's morally obliged to, given the quality.
The most moral goal I've ever seen in my life.
Given the quality of the build-up up to that point, if that cross comes in without what happened, preceding it, I think he brings it down and takes a more normal shot. But it's just like, hang on, the build-up to this has been so good. I've got the opportunity here to put the punctuation
in the back of his mind. He probably had that Sane finish in the back of his mind and thought, I can't now.
Yeah.
I can't scuff this over the line. And I was exactly what I was going to say, Gaz. Like, why on earth is he taking the volley on? Because he's got so many better options, and he goes, just volley this into the top corner. Fine. Casey, any others that you'd like to give a shout out to?
Well, like I say, I would have said Bernardo Silva as well, because it is by far and away the best one. But I suppose if we're talking pure favourite, then you've got to go for Rodri into Milan. And also Gundogan, another one against United where he volleyed it in after like 12, 13, 40 seconds or whatever it was.
I remember that one.
Like that that volley just sort of I think everyone at Wembley was just in shock when that went in.
I don't know if I've told this story on the podcast or not, but that was my mum's first game back after having she had operation for lung cancer, and that was the first game that we went back to. And we're doing that thing, where you kind of she was sat in between me and my dad, just to be kind of like the buffers to the outside of the crowd. And I'm doing that thing of like, she sat down, like, are you all right? How are you feeling? Like, everything okay? And then I look up, and the very first thing I see is Gundogan connecting with that ball, and it flies in, and it just like, I couldn't have written it more perfectly.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, that's nice.
But I think the reaction to that goal in Wembley was more of shock than it was shock then celebration sort of thing. Like, how have we done this so quickly?
And that's actually the first stage of reaction to grief.
Yeah.
Shock and numbness.
Yeah. Stage 1.5, laughing at De Gea sitting down.
Yeah.
I remember it all properly cooking up to that moment as well, because obviously like we were properly flying that season with the sort of treble and the offing and everything. And I remember it was like almost as if like you couldn't have sort of created the better conditions for it, because it all like I remember they have like whatever bit of the army it is that do the brass songs on the pitch before the game and stuff like that. They did that, the obvious, and then they started playing like their own versions of pop songs basically, and everyone they played had like a City version of it. And I remember it was like they were just like whipping us up, because I remember they were playing like Seven Nation Army, it was like Kevin De Bruyne or whatever, and it was almost as if like we'd brought our own marching band to that game. Brilliant. And then that came off exactly, and then that went in, and it was just like proper out of body experience. My son said to me, I've never heard you make that noise before or since when that went in. That was just like unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah, just on a wider scale, Higgy, as well, because obviously we talked about games and goals there, but in terms of achievements, because obviously you've got, like, you think of the what Guardiola has done in England, first team to ever score 100 points, and so far only team to score 100 points. He was then, the year after, he became the first manager to defend a title in a decade. The false nine team played some of the best football we've ever seen. As we talk about with that Bernardo Silva goal, winning the treble 4 in a row. Like of all these achievements, like how is there any that's your favourite? Is there any that stand out more than the other, or is it just one unprecedented thing, followed by another unprecedented thing?
It's probably the treble, really. I mean, it's just such a difficult thing to do, and you get 3 trophies out of it. So I think that's why
nothing gets past you, does it?
Well, no, I mean, but in terms of like, is 100 points a better achievement? No, it isn't. So yeah, I mean, but the biggest achievement really is the friends we made along the way. No, is just the consistency of the man to keep at it, to keep us at that level for that long, sustain the odd dip, and then get us back on top. I mean, there's the naysayers who say like he's a checkbook manager. We all know the reason he's always at the top is because he's very, very good. He's not going to end up at Yeovil and have to try and drag them up the leagues, because that's just not how it works. But the way he's just managed to keep us at the top is just testament to his ability as a manager and character as a man.
KC, any favourites?
Well, it's the way that, like, just further on to Higgy's points there with, so like the way that he's had to change things. Well, like the way that he reinvented Stones that season, into the player that he became, and probably put in arguably one of the best Champions League final performances of all time in that new position that he created. But it wasn't just sheer luck. Like, I remember he played Bernardo at left back a couple of times before that, where he was trying to figure things out. And it was like his problem solving skills until he's your manager.
Fabian Delph.
Yeah, exactly. It's just the way that he could come up with solutions to problems at times without having to go into the transfer market. Where until he's your manager, I don't think you'll really understand that.
Yeah, Gaz, any favourite achievements of along the way? Because as I say, there's so many different kind of strands to what he's achieved at City.
Maybe managing all that with Claudio Bravo as your goalkeeper for large stretches of it as well. It's probably the highest achievement. I don't know. I mean, being less flippant. I mean,
Bravo absolutely catching strays in this episode is incredible.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, being a bit less flippant, they're all sort of different in their own way. Like the treble is obviously, in terms of esteem, the biggest achievement, because that's got the technically the sort of biggest prizes in. But I'd say the hardest, in terms of what achievement, in terms of the hardest thing to pull off, it was probably that running with Liverpool when it was at 17 games on a bounce. We had to win, and we did it. That's just like an insane thing to achieve. Like, I don't think. Yeah, I wonder if that will ever be done again. Really,
what an era
in our lifetimes. Yeah. Like, that is just like insane.
What I will say in terms of achievements for the 100 points, though, is that I think weirdly Jose Mourinho's put the Arsenal invincible argument to bed, hasn't he, this season? Because Benfica have gone invincible in their league and haven't even qualified for the Champions League. So so that can the 100 points can definitely be above the invincible season anyway. Say that.
Adobe Firefly is the all-in-one creative studio with AI-powered image and video editing for today's creative process. Built for creators of every kind, Firefly helps you generate, edit, and experiment fast. Because the asks aren't getting smaller, the budgets aren't getting bigger, and the timelines, oh yeah, still tight. With all the best creative AI models in one place, Firefly brings your ideas to life. Unlock a better way to make with Adobe Firefly.
Get a dollop of City nostalgia every Monday. Sign up at patreon.com/Blue Moon Podcast.
I want to give a shout out to the 4 in a row as well, because the number of times we hear about teams finding it really difficult to kind of motivate themselves again the next season. And I mean, Guardiola's the only manager in this decade that has defended titles. And then you look at the fact that he's not only done that, you know, for one season and then another season off the back of a treble, he's done it again.
Yeah, 4 in a row is just incredible, isn't it?
Gaz, when you think of Guardiola's time now at City and it coming to an end, like in a strange way, does it feel like the right time? Does it feel like he's achieved everything? He's achieved all of this, and the team's on the up. He's got it into a good place again. He can sign it off and hand it over to somebody else.
Maybe, yeah. I suppose like there would have been worse times, wouldn't there, for him to hand it over? You know, in the middle of like the dodgy spell last year, when you know, I don't think it was ever going to happen, but he could feasibly have left at that point. Similarly, as well, I guess, you know, him sort of going out just after the team sort of reached a high water mark, like after the treble or something, would make it impossible, you know, very difficult for the next person. So, yeah, if this season is an inflection point, then I suppose that's as good a time as any to hand it over.
Yeah, Higgy, are you prepared for it? Are you prepared for what the future looks like without him?
Well, I mean, it's looking like the future looks like Maresca, so, you know...
It kind of looks a bit like him, doesn't it?
Well, this is it. At least I won't have to... I've got a load of Pep stickers on my WhatsApp. I can just keep those. That's one advantage. I'm obviously sick of winning, as has been, you know, written about a lot in the press. Don't really like winning anymore, so that's fine too, I would imagine. I'm not looking forward to Maresca. I just didn't get a good vibe off him at Chelsea. I know Chelsea is an absolute basket case of a football club, but this is Manchester City. We're only ever 2 wrong moves away from being an absolute basket case ourselves. Yeah, I don't really know. In terms of what you said to Gaz about whether it's a good time, I don't think it is. I think he's on the cusp of a great team, and you know, to go now, it just doesn't really sit right with me. If it was me, I'd want to keep that team just to see what's bubbling there, and you know, keep it on the hob, see what comes out.
I think he's almost.
Don't be a massive turncoat.
I don't think he's finished the rebuild, has he? And that, I think that's what's slightly disappointing.
Yeah, it feels like exactly that. Yeah.
But in that sense, Casey, there'll never be a good time, because as Gaz says, you go out at the very top and you make it impossible for the next guy. You go out at the very bottom and the next guy's got a terrible job. If they're in the middle of the rebuild, then it's not the right time. There's never a right time, is there?
Yeah. I think the difference is if you go out at the top, it is a bit easy for the next. It's always going to be impossible for following Pep anyway. And I think with the way that the club's been with the hiring and firing, like you mentioned, Moons, at the start of this, I think they'll give Maresca 3 years no matter what. And the concern is he of the quality enough to actually do anything within those 3 years?
I think that like you just have to, your appointment just has to be about what's going to be best for the next season or the season after that, right? And I think that like I do completely agree that your manager is your most important person in the club, and it's important to get right. But like, you know, you're like, if your Peps, or even like your like Fergies or your Klopps, or like to another extent the Wenger, they're all kind of like unicorns, aren't they? You can't sort of get your next one of those. They just sort of happen. And I always think like people sort of make it a bit overwrought, really, in terms of like trying to get the next manager. Effectively, I think the question is like, is this guy, is Maresca the best option, for delivering some of the next 12 months?
But that's the thing. But I don't think he is. I don't. That's the thing. And I really want to be proven wrong.
I think I would have been a lot more.
Is anyone available?
I would have been a lot more depressed if the last 4 or 5 months haven't played out the way they have at Chelsea. Because I would have been massively underwhelmed, thinking, oh, is that the guy just basically ran aground there? But judging on the evidence since, I think he's done he obviously did a decent, if not spectacular job. And I think there's something what Vinny said, isn't there, about how you don't want to be the guy that follows the guy. Hopefully this is us. Hopefully this is our Emery, if that's who we need to sort of clear the decks before you get the next one in.
Yeah. Well, we're going to change guests now, so thank you very much to Gaz.
Cheers.
Casey.
Cheers, mate.
And Chris Higginbottom.
Thanks very much.
We're now going to discuss Guardiola and the media for the next few minutes, and to do that, I'm now joined by the Daily Mail's Jack Gaughan. Hi, Jack.
Hello, David. You okay?
Yeah, not bad, sir, not bad. And from the Times, Paul Hirst is with us. Hi, Paul.
Hi, David. How are you doing?
Good. I mean, let's start, because it's been a kind of a momentous era covering City under Guardiola. Jack, what's it like when you take a step back now and look at everything that's happened over the last 10 years and kind of the job that you do and everything that's gone around with covering City in this era? What's it been like?
Quite a broad question, isn't it? Incredible. In a word, it's been saying to people all week, it's kind of a professional privilege of a lifetime, really, being able to sit across from him for 10 years, 4 times a week, being able to ask him whatever you want. Best manager there's ever been, there is at the moment, and ever will be, I think, to be honest. Kind of in a professional setting, quite personable, I think. Don't know whether Paul would agree, but we've had some incredible press conferences with him. He's great copy. Basically, he's a genius on the pitch. He's great copy, and he seems like a nice fella, which to us is the perfect trifecta, really.
Paul, you're nodding along there. I mean, the first instance I want to ask you is, how did he do with your accent to start with? Because
still badly. He hasn't got a clue. He hasn't got a clue what I'm saying. Honestly, it's got to the point now where I was kind of a little bit pissed off about it at the start. I was like, I'm here every week, pal. Chew yourself in. And then I thought, actually, no. He's the genius here. Let's kind of. Let's calibrate and kind of work on a middle ground here, where I speaking slowly, hand up so he knows that he's talking to you, right? So he's thinking, right, oh god, this bloody idiot, this knuckle dragger here.
Better focus, yeah.
Yeah, it's come on, yeah. And he does that. He does focus, doesn't he? You know it, Jack. You see, he sort of stares at you like that, and thinks, right, I've got to focus for this guy because he's going to come out with some gibberish or whatever. So yeah, sometimes I've had to kind of simplify the questions and slow it down a little bit, but he got there in the end, and I'm the millionth journalist that he's spoken to in his life, so we're one of a passing crew, aren't we? Really, but still, he does he listens to he's very rarely dismissive of questions, and even the tough ones. I think that particularly the people that cover them regularly, and I cover United as well, so I'm not in the same sort of level as Jack, the likes of Jack and Cybakowski and Sam Lee and Shamoon from the BBC. It's just kind of I just think everyone, he knows faces, doesn't he? He knows faces, and he knows that whenever you ask a question, if it's hard or not, he will answer it with respect and quite carefully. The people that he doesn't like, I mean, I'm not saying people he doesn't like, but he just doesn't like Sky, does he? He doesn't like, they've got to be in their bonnet about Sky. So poor Ben Ransom, who's one of the nicest men in journalism, often cops for some pretty crappy answers sometimes, doesn't he? Out of no fault of his own. But that's just because Pep's got to be in his bonnet over Sky, and that's his thing. He's a stubborn guy. He's just kind of, once you're in his bad books, it's pretty hard to get out of it. And Joe Cancelo will vouch for that, and so Yaya Toure, and yeah, so it's but yeah, no, certainly with us, I think he's been really good, and as Jack says, it's a real privilege to having shared a room with him, and just listen to his thoughts, and traveled the world, and just listen to him just branch out from football as well. We had the Catalonian independence talks, didn't we? And the recent stuff on human rights and war and ICE, and he's not afraid of taking on any topic. And a lot of managers, a lot of people in sport just won't go there. And I think he's got to be commended for actually doing that and sticking his head above the parapet.
He's mentioning the accent, or didn't understand Hirsty's sort of accent. It's just triggered in me actually. It's the northern lads that he struggles with.
Yeah, definitely.
So like Sam, obviously not from the north. Like he can understand. He's always understood.
Yeah, quite a neutral accent, Sam, doesn't he?
Yeah. So when I put my hand up and it's the mic's coming to me, you can visibly, you can see him sort of move. He leans forward in his chair. It's as if he's like coming over.
He's like, oh, kind of, yeah.
He's like, he really has to pay attention to what I would consider mine to be fairly neutral, but obviously it's not.
Yeah, Jack, you've I always ask you about this because he's not afraid of having a little dig, but kind of it seems like a fairly friendly and jolly dig, if you know what I mean. Like the one I always think of, and sorry that it's you, but I always think of when he goes ladies first and then lets you ask the question.
I didn't know whether that story was going to ever. I don't know whether it's PC to say that, to be honest. So I've never told that story. But for the listeners, we were at Turf Moor and there was two of us with our hand up and two of us trying to ask questions at the same time. And he just pointed at me and said, ladies first. So off I went. To much hilarity in the press room. It's a bit like Paul was saying about kind of how he deals with the regulars, and Paul is as regular as everyone else. It's always interesting when you go away to, I don't know, cover him away in like London or Southampton or wherever, and he makes a real point of name checking the lads from Manchester. Like there was one. I mean, this is annoyingly, this is about me. I would rather it be about someone else. But there was one at Brentford last year, I think, where again similar thing in a press conference where there was like the press officer pointed to me and said, "You go." So I was about to go, and there was this other lad. I don't know who he worked for, but he's working for someone in London. Started asking, and Pep looked at him and went, "Oh, are you Jack?" And he went, "What?" He went, "You Jack?" And he went, "What? No." And he went, "He's Jack. You go." And everyone's like, "Wow!" But it's like what you get in it when you cover. You're there every week, but he's always, yeah. He's tried to make a point of not making us feel welcome, because that would be over egging it, but just making sure that we all know that he's aware of what we're doing. And effectively, I am reading all your stuff.
Well, I was gonna get into this because there is the school of thought that like you should just ignore everything, ignore the outside noise, and focus on what's going on inside. But all the long reads are being done, and like one of the common factors is that he is reading everything. He's online. He's looking at everybody's tweets and all this sort of thing. Does that put any more pressure on you, Paul, when you know that your copy is going to be scrutinised?
I really
or do you not think about it? Do you just ignore it?
No, you put that in my head. Yeah. No, I think you're right. And there's a bit in Jack's excellent pieces that he's done this week about Pep's time, where he's talking about Pep doom scrolling on Twitter in restaurants, and you can just see him doing that, can't you? You can, because he is like that kind of obsessive personality, hasn't he? He never really switches off, and he wants to know everything that's being said about him, and in a good way and a bad way, I think. It's kind of, he wants to be aware of that. The thing about the team selections, he always brings that up in press conferences, doesn't he? He said, "Oh, I bet people were talking about me not playing central defensive midfielder." So he only knows that because he's gone on Twitter and seen it. But in terms of like what you write, I mean, not really. I just think you've got to. you just got to be prepared for the fact that managers will read your copy. You know, we've certainly remember from sort of United, from covering United as well, that Erik ten Hag used to have a briefing, a media rundown given to him at 8 o'clock every morning. He demanded it. You know, so I think managers do want to know what's being said out there. So it's just part of the job, really. And there's never really been an instance where Pep's said to one of us, I don't think, "Oh, you're writing a load of rubbish" the other day or something like that. So if he does have any sort of, you know, any complaints, he probably keeps them to himself or lets us know via the media team. But yeah, there's never really been any kind of direct comeback.
Yeah, Jack, how much? I mean, Paul mentioned your pieces there. You've been doing, or you've done kind of a lot of long reads and kind of background. Like, just first off, how much work has gone into that? Because
I've tried to make them so long, so he's not going to read them. I've been working on them for 4 months, so it's taken, not solidly, but it's taken a fair amount of time. It's just like talking to people you wouldn't ordinarily talk to, and old coaches and members of staff that now feel that they're able to have a chat about their experiences under him and things like that wouldn't have been accessible when they were there. So it's been really fun, and I hope people enjoy them. But I mean, there's going to be so many good. Certainly next week when it's all sort of announced that he's gone and it's finished. There's going to be so much good writing from everybody, really. Paul, Sam, Simon, Martin Blackburn, James Ducker. There'll be just like loads and loads of stuff that will all be equally as excellent as each other. It just so happens that mine's been this week.
Yeah. When you kind of speak to the people that have been around him, what sort of things do you find out? How do you find out more about him as a person?
It's funny actually, because when you would do it, like, they're not interviews, they're just like having a chat, and basically you have one question for these people, and it is, right, tell me everything there is to know about your relationship with Pep over a period of X amount of years. And as we all know, that is not the way to get any sort of information out of anybody. But that is the one thing you just want to say. It was like, can you just send us a voice note with like 10 amazing anecdotes? Would that be all right? So you just sort of like, I don't know, kind of try and ask about specifics about the training ground, and like talk about the geography of work and like who's where and what happens during a training session. Then it'll be like, oh right, well yeah, that's when he did this, and there was like some really interesting stuff I've had from some people about like his attitude towards the perfect cross. So like you would assume that it'd be like either a whipped cross or a drilled cross or whatever, and his philosophy is that the best cross is a floated one that is just not threatening whatsoever. And it's because he wants them to win the second balls on the edge of the box, because it's difficult to head it away, and he wants to win the second ball. And you look at some of the games.
Oh my God, like that has literally just changed, blown my mind, because all those games where they're floating it into the box, I'm thinking, look, like we're not going to score from that.
Like, look at the, it's in Thursday's piece about the treble, the build up to the United game in the FA Cup final. It was like, right, we want second balls off Erling. And it was like, get it to Ortega, and then go straight to Erling, and then get around him. And obviously within 12 seconds, they've done exactly that and scored. And these sort of things, like when you talk to these people that have worked with him, they're the kind of details that you would associate with some of his pals, i.e. Pulis, Warnock, Allardyce, rather than this like genius of kind of fluid passing football. But I think that's what makes him so amazing, like just such an interesting character, that actually he's more aligned to a Warnock than he is to a Hertzler, for example. Like he's more on that end of the spectrum, but you wouldn't know that without people giving up the time and telling you what he's like. So it's been it's been great.
If you enjoy the show, please give it a rating and a review wherever you get your podcasts.
Paul, your end of season long reads have long been a staple of kind of the podcast and looking at all the kind of background information that goes into them. What have you learned about, like, through doing them each year? What have you learned about Pep as a person?
Well, there's not one year that goes by where you don't find out something that's fascinating or just kind of completely left field. Again, Jack's written about it in his piece earlier this week, but that trip to bloody Celtic Manor in the first season, in between the Swansea games, that to me, for what I've done this time, the wrap of 10 years, that was, to me, was one of the most illuminating stories. Just the fact that apparently at that point they were all kind of, all the backroom staff were being sort of like treaded on eggshells and sort of going to bed at 9 o'clock on these trips just because they didn't want to, annoy this supreme great Messiah Guardiola. And he just said, sod this, we're having a barbecue. And then they end up getting pissed and until the early hours and doing, one of the kitmen's doing like Michael Jackson moves and all this kind of stuff. And like, you think that is, when I was talking to someone who, again, like a contact who was there, that he was saying that was the starting point of, that was a starting point that led to the treble. And it's such a weird thing to say if you just look at it actually, physically, and think, what a piss up in Swansea, eventually ended up with them winning the Champions League. But his point was that it cracked that kind of vision of Guardiola being like a tyrant or whatever, and actually started like engendering a real kind of brotherhood between like the backroom staff members and the kitmen who are on a pittance compared to the star striker. And he's sort of getting them on the same kind of level, getting them as part of the same team, thinking on the same page. And I think they ended up having a lot more respect for each other as a result of things like that. You look at, obviously see it on Twitter quite a lot, the pictures of Haaland, giving his training top to the kit man rather than just throwing it on the floor, and there's that kind of, it's like, they do have a real kind of like kinship there between them. And that for me is that's been one of the most important reasons why they've been successful. And each year you learn of like trips that they've had together, whether it's to the cinema, or whether it's to a team dinner, or a speech that someone's given, like a farewell dinner speech at the training ground, for example, that kind of shows you how tight they are as a group. And I know every club says this about their team, they're really close dressing room, but this is for real. They are a really tight knit bunch of players and staff, and that's one of the reasons why they've been so successful, because you're in each other's pockets for 45, 46 weeks a year, and if you don't get on, if you don't have a solid kind of unit, then you're not really going to be successful. So yeah, that's kind of one of the most interesting parts for me.
Jack, is it going to be weird without him?
Exceptionally weird, yeah. It's going to be a complete different change. It's going to be fascinating to see the extent of changes that take place under Maresca, both from a squad perspective and the backroom staff, because it sounds like there's going to be a lot of change outside of sort of the obvious manager, coaches, players. So that's going to be fascinating. And also the other thing about Pep is that Pep could look outside the window and say it's cloudy or it's sunny or whatever, and people will go, "Oh right, he said that, has he?" Like you'd always have half a chance of getting on the back page with Pep, in a way that you just don't with other people, because they just don't have the same cachet as him. But that's not to, he's just out on his own, isn't he? On everything, even from a personality perspective, just a complete behemoth of a man, and it's going to be. Yeah, it's going to be, next season's going to be really interesting, because there's going to be an element of, well, Pep didn't do it like that. And you've got to, particularly from our perspective when we're writing about it, I think you've got to be very mindful of not falling back into, well, Guardiola did this, because it's all new and Maresca's his own man. So you've just got to let him develop and do it in his own way.
I was going to say, Paul, in terms of the story for next season, how like almost the first question in the first press conference is like, okay, so what's going to be different under Maresca?
Yeah, it's going to be. I mean, it's a difficult job, isn't it? It's it's like the more you succeed in Fergie, isn't it? I would say that the one difference between those two situations is that Maresca is inheriting one hell of a squad, with an average age of sort of mid-20s, a squad that's won a lot of things, that's got that experience of winning things.
It's on an upward curve as well at the moment.
Upward curve, and that certainly from talking to people over the last few days, there's been, you can tell with those two trophy wins, particularly oddly enough, the Carabao one, that has led to a real kind of like solidification of the relationship between these new players and the older ones that have done it before. So there's a real kind of like sense of that kind of brotherhood I was talking about earlier being enhanced over the last few weeks. So the dressing room is it's really sound, really stable, really professional. They all get on well with each other. So that will definitely help Maresca. And as Jack says, he's his own guy. He's won things before, and it's not. We have got to be careful. We can't just hark back to the glory days, because it was always going to end sometime, wasn't it? It wasn't going to go on forever, and I think none of us expected it to last for 10 years. So yeah, it'll be difficult for Maresca, but he's inheriting a really good squad, and let's also look at the fact that the club is really well run in terms of like the infrastructure. They've got a great scouting department in place. They've got a very good director of football in Hugo Viana, who had the best, a good apprenticeship under Cheeky for a few months. So I think it's a lot more stable than he couldn't wish for a better set of circumstances, basically, to be walking into.
Yeah. Well, just to finish, Jack, is there anything that kind of personal with you and Guardiola that over the last 10 years you just kind of you look back on and just think quite fondly of?
There's a few bits. There's certainly one I can't retell.
Well, do it.
I think the problem I was not gonna tell this story because it might sound a bit self-indulgent. It doesn't mean to. I don't mean to at all. Probably the best one, because to be honest, Paul will be the same. I think there's not that many moments away from the cameras that you're really with him. I mean, there's ones when we're on pre-season or we're in America or in the Club World Cup last year and whatever, where he'd come over and see how you were and shake your hand and then not let go of your hand, and you go, oh, like everyone's a bit sweaty here. Can you just like? So there's those little bits, and it's fine. I think. I mean, at the end of his press conference in Istanbul, like Paul knows this story, he was walking out of the press room, and sort of we were on deadline, and I was writing the back page or whatever, and it was quite late. I had my laptop on my lap, and I was sat on my seat, and he comes past, and he just like looms over me and gives me this massive hug, and like there's a room full of foreign journalists looking at me going, who the fuck's that guy? And he's like, but I'm sat there and I couldn't move because I had my laptop on me. And so he just sort of comes straight over me, and I just had to like sort of pat him on the back as he was over me, and like, yeah, see you, mate, like, well done. And it was just the whole thing was just really weird. And then when he left the room, there's a guy called Andy Hampson that works for the Press Association that it's basically his job to get sort of team news in press conferences. So he will ask about is everyone fit, whatever. And Pep had cottoned onto this like quite quickly during his reign, and kind of gently mocks Andy about it. And Andy's happy to sort of talk about it. And Andy tells the story that as Pep's leaving that press room, he sees Andy from behind, like, stood behind his camera because he was filming it, and he went up to him and said, "Everybody's fit, no injuries," and then just walked off, like, laughing to himself. So I think he was enjoying himself, and as he wandered out that night.
Understandable, really. Paul, anything from you? Any good kind of interactions?
Yeah, again, I'm going to sound self-indulgent here, but there's a couple. One when I was a Sheffield Wednesday fan, as you know, and there was after when a couple of years ago when Wednesday were playing the playoffs, they came back from 4-0 down to win on penalties against Peterborough, and there's a press conference the day after, and Pep was, you know, as we all know, he's an absolute massive lover of English football, particularly Football League, and he was saying he was talking about his love of English football in the press conference, and he said, look at last night. I was flicked the channel over and I was watching this team, this EFL, the League One playoff semi-final, and there were 30,000 people there, I think. And then he turned to Alex. He was like, I think it was 30,000, the press officer, and Alex Rowan, and Alex said, "Oh, Paul will know. He's a Sheffield Wednesday fan." And he pointed me out. He said, "Oh, you Sheffield," which annoyed me a little bit, to be honest. There is one team in Sheffield, in my opinion, but there are more actually. And I said, "Yeah," and he said, "Oh, congratulations." And it was like, and he said, "Oh, how many were there?" And I said, "I think it was like 35. I think I actually got the figure wrong." But he was like, "Wow, congratulations." And I thought, that to me, I remember the BBC Radio Sheffield did a story on it, and it subsequently appeared in a couple
I didn't realise that.
Yeah, it appeared in a couple of books as well, and I was just, I was thinking, God, that is, that it's really it's nice that he knows about that, I mean, it just sums him up that he's watching that bloody game on a Thursday night, isn't it, at home, and, the fact that he said, so that personal congratulations to me is really is really nice, really kind of heartwarming. I remember walking out of that press conference, and Jack wasn't one of them, but a few of the other lads were going, "Oh, you're his best pal now," and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, really like childish kind of humour from us as journalists. But yeah, so that was really good.
All good fun. Yeah.
Yeah, good bands. Yeah, good from him.
Yeah. Well, it's time to get a different view now. So thank you very much, Jack Gaughan.
Thank you, mate. Cheers.
And Paul Hirst.
Thank you.
We're going to finish now with some more fan memories. So let's say hello to Bob Toole.
Hello, Mooney.
We've got from Stat City, Adam Carter.
Hello.
And Sam Rosbottom's with us. Hi, Sam.
Hello, mate. How's everybody doing? You all right?
Good, thanks. I mean, Sam, I'll start with you. I'll let because you were much more involved in doing weekly podcasts when Guardiola arrived, and me and you did that special when the news was announced, where we basically did this again, where we spoke to a load of people about what it was going to be like, and then shot the shit between us about the next few years. When we were sat in that studio doing that, were you honestly expecting that 10 years later would be the point at which he was leaving?
Short answer, no. I was thinking about this the other day, actually, and I was thinking how mad it is that we've got to this stage anyway. I know Jack Gaughan has done some really interesting pieces, sort of like fly-on-the-wall pieces about Pep's tenure. And, there's some interesting stuff in that about what's sort of kept him going at City and what's kept him on, and how the impact of the chairman, Khaldoon, has been incredibly influential in keeping Pep Guardiola at Manchester City. I think when he first signed, I don't think many of us were expecting any more than 3 years, because that's what he'd done at Barcelona, at Bayern Munich.
He'd actually done 4 at Barcelona. So was the fact that he'd signed a 3-year deal, though, it was kind of like, this is 3 years, isn't it? That's it. That's all it's going to be.
But I think there's always the hope that, when you've got the best in world football, which he was at the time as well, let's not forget that it's not just now he's the greatest manager in world football, but at the time as well, which is why when that press conference with Pellegrini, when he said, "Yeah, oh, and by the way, I'm off at the end of the season, lads. Nice one." Just completely flummoxed everybody, didn't it? And then
did you go to that? Were you at that?
I was trying to think the other day if I was there. I don't think I was. It was probably one of those where I was like, I really do not want to sit through another 30 minutes of Manuel Pellegrini. Absolutely. It was torture, to be honest with you. So I think that was another element to the surprise and the shock was for the City press pack that would go to those press conferences on a weekly basis, twice a week on many occasions, it was very dull. You kind of knew what you were getting from it before you even went there. So I think when that press conference I think it was February, wasn't it, when he said he was off, it was shocking, really. Like, I think from a club perspective as well, like, I don't think, City had done things that way before. I don't know if it caught the club off guard as well, a little bit, maybe. But yeah, that was really interesting. Obviously, the news came through that they'd agreed a deal with Guardiola. It was just really like, holy shit, like, is this really happening? I remember vividly, during my time when I was a journalist and was covering City, I remember vividly the press conference when Guardiola first came to the Etihad with Bayern Munich. I think that was 2014. And I remember, so in the Champions League, they always have a press conference with the away team the night before the game, after they've sort of trained in the stadium, etc. And the press room in the bowels of the Etihad was jam-packed, and the atmosphere was electric. It was buzzing, and he walked in and everybody was hanging on every word he was saying. It was incredible. It was akin to what I would imagine an audience with the Pope is like, because it genuinely was. I was expecting, mothers and fathers to come in with babies in their arms for him to bless, sort of vibes. So that was like the first introduction that I had to sort of Guardiola as a manager. That when he was Bayern Munich manager and came to City, and then obviously the news came through, Pellegrini was off, Guardiola was coming in. Oh my God. Wow.
Everything's changed.
Here we go. Yeah. And then his first press conference, that unveiling day, which again, it was absolutely bedlam in the press room at the Academy stadium. And yeah, just wow. I don't think anybody even then, in that room was expecting him to stay for 10 years and have the impact that he's had, not just at Manchester City, but wider as well. There's the joke that you see going around in all the various pieces about him that, he's got even League Two footballers playing out from the back, sort of thing. So yeah, I don't think anybody expected what was to come, and I'm glad it did.
Yeah. I mean, the other side of this, Bob, 10 years is a long time. We weren't expecting it. Like, at what point did you realise that things were different under Guardiola? Because that first season, like, things didn't especially kick off as well as as a lot of people kind of thought they might. But then by season 2, they're winning 100 points and winning the league. At what point did you kind of think, oh God, this guy, he's going to change everything that I know about football?
I think probably the first concrete signs for me were probably the last couple of games of his first season. I think I always remember being on holiday, and I think we beat Watford 5-0 or something, which I guess in retrospect doesn't look that impressive given what we did to Watford over the years. But
I mean, Watford will be quite thankful he's gone, won't they? He's got a thing about him.
Indeed. But yeah, that seemed like the first sign to me that that was something extra special. I seem to recall Gabriel Jesus doing quite well in that game. But obviously the Centurion season is really where it all just came together. So some of those games in that first half of the season were unbelievable, like the 7-2 against Stoke. I just don't remember seeing a game like that. Some of the goals with the De Bruyne assist for that Sané goal, for example, just incredible. I think Fernandinho scored a screamer. But we were about 10 points clear in October or something, or November. It was just, we were so far ahead so early on. It was like, this has not happened before. And then obviously we went to Old Trafford in December, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It was the first game in December, I think, because I think that win, I think, put City something like 15, 18 points ahead of them.
Yeah, and that was basically it, wasn't it, in terms of the title? And was that the Mangala Santa hat?
Yeah,
one as well.
Yeah, it was.
So another iconic moment as well. So yeah, I mean that was it, wasn't it? Really, I think I can't speak for other City fans, but that first half of that season was just like nothing the English football had seen before in terms of like the sheer dominance, and obviously it went on to be the case that is unparalleled to this day with the 100 points.
You can listen to the show ad-free by joining our Patreon, patreon.com/Blue Moon Podcast.
Adam, you've been collecting data on City in a way that I admire and will always admire. Like when you were doing it in those early days of Guardiola, did you think this is mad? Like the numbers that City are posting are unprecedented.
Yeah, it was really, he helped the popularity of my account because every week there was a new record that I got to post and that I got to write about and I got to celebrate across all the socials. So I really credit, he was a record-breaking manager. Every week there seemed to be a new one there was a new record we almost seemingly made up just for him because he'd done something absurd and just extraordinary that hadn't been done before, and he's taking every single metric to the next level. So I'll just absolutely miss being able to chalk another record off, another landmark, another trophy, another milestone. It's just being a numbers guy. He's been the perfect manager to kind of be charting through these seasons.
Mm. When you think of it as well, Adam, the numbers that they've posted and the achievements that they've had, like every single one of them is different, and like every single one of them means something different to City fans. Because obviously, like the 100 points never been done before. Winning the title back to back for the first time in a decade, and holding off that Liverpool team that got 97 points, City with 98. Then doing 4 in a row, winning the treble, like all of this sort of stuff. Like, are his achievements they're incomparable with anybody else? But are they incomparable with each other because they're all like each one of them is so unique?
Yeah, they're almost a different era within the Guardiola decade as well. You've got the domestic quad as well that we can throw in there. And I think if all of us as City fans, you mentioned the treble, you can picture the players that were integral to that under Guardiola. You picture the quad, the people that were integral to that. The 100-point season, the people that were integral to that. There's almost, I'm breaking it down now. I'm looking retrospectively at the decade and I'm building it into different eras underneath him as well. So it just shows how long we've had with him. Obviously, he's the longest serving manager of all time. And we can now almost put these pockets and these little photo albums, little memories in little chapters for him now, which is a nice legacy to have. And that's what I kind of associate with all his records, is the team that he did it with. We're talking about him reinventing a team now, but when you look back, he's actually done it 2, 3, 4 times across that 10-year period as well. And I think a lot of credit needs to be, he deserves a lot of credit for those type of rebuilds as well. They've not been massive because it's been like one big player going each year and then they bring a couple in. But I think he deserves a lot of credit for the rebuilds that he has actually done. It's not just one big rebuild this season.
Yeah, Sam, how are you processing it? Are you nostalgic? Are you sad? Are you kind of intrigued about what the future will bring? Are you a mixture of all of it? Like, how are you feeling?
I've been thinking a lot about. I've been thinking a lot really about the different eras in City's history, and I think about my granddad and his memories of the late 60s, early 70s when they had that era. Well, we've just witnessed something in the past 10 years that surpassed that and then some. And I think that's going to take us a long time to process. But we'll always have that, oh my God, we lived through that. So it's a bit of a sudden realization, really, that, we've witnessed something that only football fans in their wildest dreams can ever imagine happening to them and happening to their team. Like the greatest manager in the world, the greatest moments in world football club competitions, the records tumbling, like Adam said. Some of these records are good, and it's going to take so long for them to be beaten, just because
maybe they never will.
Well, maybe they never will. But look, records are there to be broken, aren't they? But look, I think that's what I've been thinking a lot about over the past sort of few days is just processing that shit. Wow, it's been it's been unbelievable for like the past 10 years, and we're so fortunate to have been through that all, and probably the realization that is it going to continue like this? Hopefully, I think Pep is leaving us in a strong place. I think the signings that we made in January have really strengthened us in terms of the spine of the team. He's leaving us with a system that is future proof at Manchester City at the moment. And if it sounds as though Maresca's in. He's obviously got a lot of experience in working with Pep Guardiola. He's got his own experience being his own man and having success there as well. So, it's going to be interesting. And I think I don't think it's I don't think it's a surprise to anyone, or I don't think anyone else isn't feeling nervous about what's to come after Pep Guardiola. Because let's face it, right? It's one hell of a job to fill after him.
Yeah, is it hard to process, Bob? Because whatever does come, like even if we all say it's not going to be as good. Maybe it is. We don't know. We have to wait and see. But even just it being different, Guardiola has been a mainstay of our supporting lives for 10 years. So much has changed in each of our lives in that time, but Guardiola's been a constant, and now he's not there.
Yeah, it is just mad how long he has been here. In the context of modern football, where a couple of seasons is pretty much par for the course, and there's usually half the league's managers are sacked every year, every season. So to be there for 10 whole years, you kind of get comfortable, don't you? And especially when it's semi-regular to be smashing these records, which we've been talking about. I mean, and the different eras, an era is usually considered to be a long thing, but in football, it doesn't have to be. It can be a season or 2 seasons or whatever. And when I think Adam was talking about the 4 in a row, it dawned on me within that 4 in a row, it might be easy to assume that you've got just one solid group of players that saw us through all that. But in some respects, I think the treble season was almost a bit of a transition season. We weren't that good up until the new year.
Yeah.
And it was Haaland's first season and that. And there was all the talk of getting used to him and him getting used to us. Yet, it's easy to forget that because we won the treble, and it you assume we were just this all-conquering team, and we weren't. So yeah, those things, we're talking about eras, but they are quite short periods of time. But when you add them all together, 10 years is mad. And yeah, like I say, I'm in denial about it. So, I mean, given we're all of a similar age, we're used to City not being great, in our younger years. So it's fine if we're not as good in the future. It's not a problem. I don't ever want our fan base to be entitled like some of our rivals are. It probably won't be as good, but it might be, like you allude to. So yeah, it's just got to be philosophical and grateful for it. I mean, personally speaking, I've had a season ticket for all of Pep's tenure, bar the last season or two. No, just this last season, sorry. And that's amazing. I don't think I ever dreamed that would happen when I was desperate for a season ticket, when I was little, when I was growing up, when I didn't live in Manchester. So to have seen that and firsthand and been to so many amazing matches and, all the social side of it that goes with it, it's just unbelievable. So, yeah.
Yeah. And Adam, I mean, as Bob's talking about the 4 in a row there as well, and having the different kind of eras within all of that, it sounds daft to say it as well. But one of the things that in order to break that record, somebody's going to have to win the title for half a decade.
Yeah,
that's insane.
It's weird looking back at it now because we were part of it. It was kind of what we did, so it was just on to the next one, to the next one. Now you separate yourself from it, and you 5 in a row. everything that has to go right just to win one league, let alone multiply it by 2, 3, 4, 5.
What do you think it says about Guardiola that he was able to do that for each of those seasons? Because like as you say, things go wrong in a title challenge. Things, players get demotivated. You have to change the squad up, and City have got it right for 4 years in a row.
Yeah, I think it goes to his dedication. I think we have to, and I know we won't ever know the facts, but you've got to remember he's had a marriage breakdown during his time at City as well. And I believe, just from the outside looking in, that he's actually dedicated his life to City rather than to his own personal well-being at times. It would appear, and we've got to be super thankful for that. I think it was his dedication to his craft, to his love of Manchester City, to his love of the job in sickness in a way, because he has even confessed to being so obsessed with it that it's a sickness. And I think we've bore the fruits of that, and we've got the reward of his hard work and dedication. He's fell out with players, but we've kept on winning. He's left players out, the unhappy faces, all those documented happy flowers comments and stuff, and we've carried on winning. He's took big decisions. He's got rid of big players, Joe Hart, Aguero, people like that. And, he's not scared to make those big decisions, and that's because he's the greatest of all time. He lives and dies by his decisions. We know he loves to tinker the lineup. I think that's the only thing fans would complain about when we've got a big game coming up, and he might just throw a bit of a curveball in there. But who are we to complain? His conditioned us to expect 2 trophies every season, and I think we've just bore the fruits of his dedication and his absolute passion for it, much to the detriment of his own personal life, I'd say.
Yeah, and Sam, Adam mentioned the happy flowers thing there. He's always done that thing of whenever you're out, he's said something in press conferences or his interviews, he just reels you straight back in. I could listen to him for hours talking about football.
Yep, very happy. I'm very happy. Happy New Year. Happy New Year,
yeah. Have we got any favourites though? Sam, have you got any favourites that he's done? You've just said the Happy New Year one. We've had Happy Flowers.
Yeah. You know what? I always imagine myself on the other side of the microphone asking him the question, and I always think, oh God, how?
What if it's me? What if it's me? He does one of these two? Yeah.
How would you deal with that? I think I'd just burst out laughing. I'll say piss off or some, but yeah, you could see it in his eye when he was in that sort of mischievous, almost you could see he was raging inside, couldn't you? And I think that's what, everybody loved it when he got on, not necessarily a rant, but a pep rant. And I think there's been a few of them that have been great. And I think one thing this season, I think as well, that's come through is I think with the media, he's been a lot more relaxed. So obviously, if you listen to the rumours and you read the reports sort of thing, him leaving City has been on the cards for quite some time. And I think when we look back at the different points in the season, in his media interviews, etc., his relationship with the press pack at City, I think he's relaxed a lot more this season compared to other times. And yeah, that's really come through for me. But yeah, the Happy New Year one is a standout.
Yeah, the one that lives in my head, Bob, and you might remember it because it was after a Leicester game, and obviously you're from Leicester. Back in his first season, City lost 4-2 at the King Power. They didn't win a tackle in the first 35 minutes, and all the press pack were just asking Guardiola about like do you need to be stronger in the tackles? And he just replied with, I'm not a coach for the tackles. What is tackles? And honestly, that question has lived in my mind for the last 10 years.
Yeah, that is a classic. It is up there. I mean, the fact that I forgot it was about Leicester, to be honest, but because there was another batter in that season, wasn't there? The Everton game as well. So it's interchangeable in my mind. But yeah, that one is extremely funny. And at the time, there was daggers out for him, wasn't there, in that season? Just the sort of perceived arrogance he had to come over to England and play football in the way he wants. How dare he? And it would never work. And it's really funny looking back because obviously it did work, but
it's not only worked; it's changed the entire fabric of English football. Yeah.
Well, indeed, and at the time though, as well, which is even more laughable, like English football wasn't in a great place. Leicester had just won the league, which is an amazing achievement in its own right, but it is Leicester. Like Pellegrini's City, that were in a pretty mediocre state by the time he left, limped over into the Champions League. United weren't far behind them. English football wasn't in a great place at all. So the kind of idea that he would be so arrogant to impose his own ideas on the English game is quite laughable, really. So the tackles thing is like a highlight, but another one I want to mention, which I think a lot of City fans really love him for, is when all the 115 charges dropped. I think his press conference when that landed was amazing because he spoke like a fan. He shut it down.
Shut it all down as well.
He fighted for the club, and it was like in years gone by prior to that, he'd occasionally call out fans for not turning up for midweek Champions League group stage games or not making enough atmosphere or whatever. But it felt like when that one came, he was really on the side of the fans and what it meant to be a supporter of that club, and he fought for it all. And I think that really won the hearts of a lot of fans that maybe might have still been sceptical about him. So that really sticks in my mind as like a sort of major moment in his sort of journey from being like this sort of potentially doesn't really understand the club to them being fully immersed to the point where we are now, where he's just been like an absolute hoot for the last few months. So yeah, love it.
Adam, the one I want to finish on, and I'm sorry that I'm going to say these words to you, but John Stones has more balls than anyone in this room.
I love that one about defending from the halfway line.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just love. There's almost an element of broken English to that as well, which really just adds to the Pep cojones type terms that you used to use.
Do you know what makes it even better as well is that he knocks the microphone. That's a real Pep thing to do in the presses as well. Was just hit the microphones with his gesturing. Yeah,
yeah, that shows how passionate he was about it. Talk about his passion in press conferences. I loved the one where he listed the 9 clubs that complained about us and wanted us kicked out of the Champions League. And then me and you argue on this because he double takes on one of them. Was it Burnley? Or
no,
Wolves?
So I need to go back and check it, and I'm sorry that I haven't done. I'm sure it's Wolves. Yeah,
I think.
But in my mind, it's Burnley, and then it didn't happen on Burnley, and I was like, oh, it wasn't Burnley. Oh, it's Wolves. Yeah.
Why is he obsessed with Wolves? Yeah, so those passions in the press conferences. I won't watch any other manager's press conferences like pre or post Pep, but his one's actually tuned in for. That's a weird skill to have. Like you say, you could listen to him all day. That one and the recent "Come on, you Hammers" one, as he shuffles out of the press conference when he was having a bit of fun. That just shows how much he was an entertainer. You know, whether it was on the sideline or in the press conferences or even in the training ground. You know, all the "you're tired, fuck you." Like it's just what an enigma he is. You know, just ridiculous.
Well, let me squeeze one more story in. This has come from Sam Lee. He told me this on Let Me Talk. There's Guardiola's attitude towards City has always been nobody's given us anything. We've had to earn it all. And no more illustrated by. Do you remember the 3-2 defeat at Brighton in lockdown when City were 2-0 up? Brighton came back to win 3-2, but City had already won the title. In that game, the fourth official was Graham Scott, who now writes for The Athletic and has told Sam Lee this story. Guardiola came up behind him, bear hugged him, picked him up, and said, "We've won the league, and there's nothing you can do about it."
He's mental.
It's just great, isn't it?
There's been some great touchline moments as well, hasn't there? Was it against Liverpool when he was like screaming twice?
Yeah.
It was every single City fan in that moment as well.
Yeah, it was also at Liverpool as well, Bob, where the fans were like, it was last season when it wasn't going well, and the fans had a bit of a go of him, and he bit back with the, I've won 6 titles. Yeah.
I've forgotten about that one, to be honest. I was just thinking about Nathan Redmond, to be honest, when you were thinking about sort of Pep moments on the pitch and stuff. But I think the Redmond moment's been trumped by and given the entire Crystal Palace team a team talk the other week, but sadly it's been completely pointless because it's too late now. But yeah.
Never mind, eh? That brings us to an end for this very special Blue Moon podcast. Thank you very much to all of my guests throughout that one, and from this final part to Bob Toole.
Cheers, Mooney.
Sam Rosbottom.
Thank you.
And Adam Carter.
A pleasure.
We'll be back with another episode of the Blue Moon podcast very soon. See you then.
That was the Blue Moon podcast. Please give the show a rating and a review where you can. And don't forget, you can listen without the ads by signing up to our Patreon at patreon.com/Blue Moon Podcast. And join us again next time for another episode.